Does archaeology verify the Bible? That question is stated very well. Some people would say that archaeology proves the Bible, but that really is not the way to say it. And although it's probably not even necessary to try to prove the Bible proves itself. The Bible is true, the Bible is accurate in all that it says about God, the world, and our salvation. Archaeology, however, does give us, from various points of view, gives us contact with the biblical world and biblical text, and does indeed then support or verify what the Bible says. For example, I brought along a few pieces of pottery that comes from Israel that I picked up just doing some archaeological work over there. And these pieces of pottery give us information about the kind of people that were living back in biblical times. For example, here is a piece of pottery, actually it's a piece of clay mud stone brick that comes from the city of Lachish. Now we know from the Bible that the city of Lachish was destroyed by the Israelites around 3,000 years ago. The book of Joshua, chapter 10, speaks about that. This piece of pottery would support the fact that there's some char here. This was mud brick, but it's been heated by the fire so that it becomes then a piece of stone. That would be evidence then what the Bible says about how the Israelites destroyed Lachish. That would support or verify the biblical account. Other archaeological items help us to know that what the Bible says is true and accurate and reliable. Now in the 19th century, people questioned the biblical record. But at the end of that century, a group of archaeologists found a massive library of clay tablets that report on the activities of a people called the Hittites. Now, earlier they said, well, there were no such thing as Hittites. Well, now they found thousands and thousands of mud brick and clay inscriptions that verify that these people really were true. I recently read a website of a Lutheran professor at another college who thought that David didn't exist. She argued with her students that David was just kind of a fictitious character. Unfortunately, she had done a very good job of research because a stone monument was been found in the area where the tribe of Dan lived in northern Israel that very clearly talks about the house of David, the descendants of David. More recent studies have shown that not only the circumstances of the Bible, but the people, the cities that are reported in the Bible actually existed. Other biblical sites like Sodom and Gomorrah, the walls of Jericho, or as I mentioned, Lachish, were true sites, and they have been found and they have been dug up. For many years, people questioned whether Pontius Pilate, a name that most of us Christians understand, and we say it every Sunday when we confess the creed, but they questioned whether Pontius Pilate even existed, or Caiaphas, the high priest, whether they existed. When I was over in Israel, we saw an inscription that has Pontius Pilate's name. It was discovered in Israel, and it talks about his rule. Or recently, more recently, in 1990, they found what's called an ossuary, a bone box, in which it says here were the bones of Caiaphas. So we know then that these people actually existed. When considering the evidence, though, it's important to realize that only a fraction of the available archaeological sites have been surveyed. And really only a fraction of those survey sites have been excavated. So, in fact, what we only get maybe is just a small percentage of the information that's probably there that could verify the Bible. Once work begins, and even there, not much even gets reported. Probably one of the greatest discoveries in recent years, the last 50 years, is the Dead Sea Scrolls. You've probably heard about that. But again, those Dead Sea Scrolls verify the biblical record. New Testament figures are often discovered. For example, the book of Romans, Paul reports that the city treasurer of Corinth, named Erastus, sent his greetings to the Roman Christians. What archaeologists have found there is a paving stone in Corinth that says, Erastus put this here. He was the city commissioner. So does the Bible need to be verified? No, I certainly believe it's true. But does archaeology verify the Bible? It certainly does. An interesting book is this one by Paul Meyer, In the Fullness of Time. He gives various archaeological evidences and says, shows the proof, at least, or shows the evidence that the Bible is true.